Potter O'Donnell, Socialist Republican Forum, offers its sincerest greetings to all members of the international working class to mark this Mayday weekend. To mark the occasion, we have invited contributions from three very useful speakers. Paul McGoldrick will enlighten us on the thoughts of the famous Bolshevik V.I. Lenin on his thoughts on Mayday. That will be followed by a conversation between Roisin McAleer and Niall Bowen as they deal with Mayday in its contemporary setting and what it means for Ireland of today.
Vladimir Lenin, the leader of the Bolshevik Revolution and founder of the Soviet Union, played a significant role in shaping the political and ideological significance of May Day, International Workers' Day, in the context of the socialist and communist movements. Lenin saw May Day as a critical tool for advancing proletariat revolution. He emphasised its role in class struggle, highlighting workers' exploitation under capitalism and the need for socialist revolution. International solidarity, uniting workers globally against imperialism and bourgeois oppression. Propaganda and mobilisation, using May Day rallies to spread Marxist ideas and organise revolutionary action. In writings like May Day Action by the Revolutionary Proletariat, 1913, Lenin framed the day as a call to overthrow capitalism, not just demand reforms. He urged workers to turn May Day into a day of revolutionary struggle rather than mere celebration. Lenin's legacy and May Day. Lenin's interpretation of May Day influenced communist movements worldwide. Many Marxist-Leninist parties adopted his view of May Day as a day of anti-capitalist agitation, not just labour reform. In socialist states, the day shifted from grassroots worker protests to state-organised spectacles. Key quotes from Lenin on May Day. The workers of all countries are uniting to fight for the liberation of labour from wage slavery, from poverty and oppression. May Day is a day of international solidarity of the proletariat, a day for reviewing the fighting forces of the working class. Summary. In essence, Lenin transformed May Day from a symbol of labour, struggle, into a revolutionary emblem, embedding it into the ideological machinery of communism. His legacy continues to shape how the day is perceived in both celebratory and critical context.
Thank you, Paul. Now I shall have Roisin and Niall.
Mayday greetings to you, Comrade McAleer, from sunny Tyrone all the way down to sunny Dublin. Now, we don't get to say that very often, so I'm going to enjoy it while I can. Happy International Workers' Day to you, Roisin. How's everything going down there? And can you fill us in on how the feeling is on the streets of Dublin?
Well, it's a good day in many ways because I think people are getting more engaged and they're becoming, definitely the education side of things is starting to filter through. So the anger is being converted into, proper action, and I can see definitely the anti-imperialist understanding is growing, and people are starting to make connections between, the conditions that we are living in here at home and making links with what's going on, in Palestine. So of course, things are terrible, but people are not full of despair and inaction. Things are beginning to happen, I think, and people are talking more about what is to do as opposed to what, what can we do? It is what it is. So that's very important, that language, and the language around anti-imperialism, I think, is definitely more part of the vernacular now of the workers, of activists, and of the outraged. I
Yeah,
don't know what it's like up at home. Do you feel a difference now? Like this, I'm talking about today, like after an action that happened at the Westbury Hotel, which is also, a significant location. But the reason why an action happened there was because the governor of the central bank happened to be in there whining and dining, and people feel that we need to confront those who are in positions of power, who are, involved with the Zionist entity and the Israeli bonds, like with central bank facilitating the sale of those, is just outrageous.
Yeah, I think, yeah, from my perspective up here, I think, I certainly share your optimism, which I suppose sounds a bit strange, when we see the resistance to what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to organize against. But that in and of itself is where the optimism lies, in my opinion. Like I'm looking down at the activity and the organizing that you're doing, at what's happening in Derry and Belfast, and what I'm seeing is we're seeing new faces all the time. Okay, not hundreds and thousands, like we got at the start, which is fine, but the new faces are coming. They were timid maybe at the start of the latest slaughter of the people of Gaza. We see them getting more angry every week. We see them coming up with new ways of organizing. We see them coming up, taking the megaphone, for example, and reading up on the people that came before us and all of the hardships that they went through. There is that common theme of, well, what are we doing? Is it getting, and there's always something that grows out of that. And for me, I think, when I reflect on International Workers' Day, in a global sense, I'm just filled with optimism. A lot of people think I need my head examined, but I just take so much pride and solace in the fact that groupings, even small groupings, coming together on a regular basis and taking part in action, taking part in organizing, it just sends that encouragement out. Don't you think, Lee?
It does. It does. Like when you look even what's happening in the States and how the students are mobilizing again, and encampments are starting up again, but in a sort of a different fashion as well, because they know doing the same thing, you can't expect a different result by doing the same thing. So they're doing things slightly differently. And even people around us or on the street are saying, like, we need to do it differently. We need to think about a strategy. We need to think about how, in the workplace, in our local communities, we can educate and agitate as well. The organisation takes time. It's hard to organise before you educate. If the understanding isn't there, if the why are we doing this isn't clear, well, then it can be a bit haphazard. And while spontaneity is understandable, sometimes people just want to go out and do something. I think that time is now passing, and people realise that going off and doing random things isn't maybe the most productive or effective way for creating the conditions of real change or long-lasting change. And I think that's a good thing. Yeah, that even that there's reflection now, and people are saying, well, we did that, and it's not that it didn't achieve anything necessarily, but it's what more can we do? And also this idea of north and south, east and west, people starting to, pay attention to how neutrality, the erosion of neutrality, is even going to affect us, and having the conversations around, why is this happening, and how come we're not the independent state that we thought we were. I find that refreshing down here in the south, that those who maybe claimed or thought, sure, we have our independence, and they were celebrating maybe 1916 celebrations, when it was the centenary there, talking about, oh, we're lucky to be free. Now people are realizing, they're waking up going, well, actually, we're not free, because if you have a message like ours, which is break the chains of Zionism, then you start to question the cultural, the political, and the economic ties that we have to the Zionist-controlled US empire and the EU as well. There was a time there when, you couldn't criticise the EU, or there was a reticence around criticising the EU for fear of being like, someone who advocated for Brexit, that was a bad thing. But when people realised that the EU don't have the values they thought they had, and they're based on economic interests really, and supporting US hegemony or this imperialist idea, then it's a really good thing to have that conversation. And there certainly isn't the same reticence around, attacking the EU and holding the EU as well to account. So that's what I would consider to be anti-imperialist understanding, and that's growing.
Yeah, and like you definitely see it even on the marches, and you see it even in conversations that you're having at demonstrations with people, and they'll come up and just a throwaway remark I've always found with people that I'm protesting with, people maybe that I don't know. There's somebody that said to me a few weeks ago, do you not find it strange that, the media and the governments of the world are telling you that it's the working class that are putting these people in power? So they're telling us, I mean, they're telling us that the working class in America have put Trump in power, for example. They're voting for Le Pen in France, they're voting for Milei in Argentina. And they're saying, well, if it's the working class that's doing it, why can't we put somebody in that that will answer for us and will speak for us? And there's that sort of recognition then that with the working class and with class analysis and class power, that real change can come.
Yeah, that's true. Without class consciousness, and our job as well, we have found is that education that is centered around class consciousness is really important. So even understanding that, how different words have been used to describe different sects of people, whether it's ruling elite, or like somebody mentioned the media class. Well, it's about having those conversations and not embarrassing someone to say there is no media class, but what do you mean by media class? So there's a media, the established media that toes the imperialist line or the Western narrative, but they're not a class necessarily. So uniting the working class comes about when people realize and can identify with this group of people. Oh, I am working class. I don't own what I'm producing. And therefore, even though I might be a higher paid, like tech worker, for example, it doesn't mean that I have any more power than the cleaner. So that whole understanding and seeing that happening in front of your eyes is gives me hope anyway. Like we were talking to a woman who works in one of the big tech industries in Ireland, and she was saying she came to a James Connolly reading circle, which was about one of the essays around, he had written it around 1898. It was about the labour movement and what to do there. I can't remember the exact title, but she was saying, well, I wanted to start a union where I work, but I just don't know where to start. And am I mad? And should I contact the existing unions for support or for guidance, or should we just do it on our own? So having that conversation like that's revolutionary talk when someone wants to actually start a union. But the thing is, I think people are still stuck on the how can I do it on my own, and debating whether to, as workers, to try to work within the current unions that we have already, the established unions, or starting new unions. So I think I don't know what do you think, Niall, about that? Like the current, yellow unions versus red unions, and how do you encourage someone to just go and do it? But
Yeah, well, I do encourage people to join trade unions all the time. That's just what I always have done. That's not to say that the unions that we have at the minute are beyond criticism. They certainly are. But yeah, if there's one thing I do every Workers' Day, maybe not so much now, but International Workers' Day for me was always a tradition of reading and talking to other people and getting them involved or getting them into the way of thinking. Um, the NIPSA trade union here in the north are talking about going on general strike now within the next few months. That'll be interesting to see. The NIPSA have sort of went out and sort of put themselves forward as one of the more militant unions up here. They were excluded from the talks in 2019, to their credit, over the nurses' strike, which give them a lot of credibility, particularly within groups like ourselves and working class communities. So will be interesting to see how they're broadly public sector workers union. So it'll be interesting to see what activity they'll be doing over the next couple of months. But yeah, absolutely. First of May, International Workers' Day, every year is a time to reflect. For me, coincidentally, it comes a few days after my daughter's birthday, so I'm usually penniless, and I'm usually it gives me more fuel against the global economic system, and just sort of it kind of just gives me that shot in the arm to go out and to get organized. Particularly in the past few months, it is easy, past even years, so it is easy to sort of feel down. It is easy to feel like you're hopeless and helpless in the face of the international rules-based order, which I think we discussed the last time. More people are coming to the realization that there is no international rules-based order. You're talking about the media, you're seeing the likes of Kneecap at the minute getting the Jeremy Corbyn treatment on the mainstream media. Again, taking positives from that, I'm seeing the pushback from it almost immediately, where people are saying, well, no, we've seen the likes of Corbyn rising to the head of the Labour Party in Britain, and how that terrified the establishment, and the lengths that they went in order to take him out of that position, and subsequently the status of the British Labour Party as it is now. So people are looking at it going, and a lot of working class people are looking at it going, no, we're not falling for this trick again, and we're simply not buying it. Yeah, so that's basically that's what I'll be doing. I've got my reading material. I've got Connolly, and the 1926 general strike. This is what my this is what Mayday consists of, and this old classic here of the ragged trousered philanthropist, and it was a Mayday 10 years ago, and I was sitting in a bar in Belfast when I used to sit in bars in Belfast, and a fella recognized me in the bar. He lived beside me, and he had that book. He didn't have that book, but he had the Ragged Trousered Philanthropist, and he started to discuss it with me, and he asked me if I'd like a lend of it. We know, as workers, we know what that means. He never saw it again, long story short. I kept saying to him, anytime I saw him, I must give you that book back. It got to the point where he said, did you read it? I says, yeah. I says, it's changed my life. He says, good. He says, don't give it back. He says, I don't want it back. He says, I bought another. And I know now what he meant, because I must have bought this copy 10 times. I've given it out. And anytime anyone's ever says, you want it back? I says, have you read it? and everyone has read it and says it's changed their life. It's made them more class conscious. And that's what, for me, that's what International Workers' Day is about. It's about sharing ideas. It's about just bringing people together and becoming more class conscious, particularly now as we see the rise of ourselves, the rise of the left, there is the rise of the right. And the best way to combat that is to have them not be afraid, but have them conversations with people, friends of ours, friends of people, family that can be sucked into this and say, you know, what is following Conor McGregor going to benefit you? What's lauding Elon Musk or Donald Trump? Is it benefiting the American working class? No, it's not. Is supporting Conor McGregor going to enhance the Irish working class? Of course it's not. And it's getting people into that way of thinking, class consciousness. How better are you? How better is your wages? Your work conditions, have they improved under this government? No, they haven't. And, you know, I think we do get people onto our side by doing that. And I think for me, that's what International Workers' Day is all about.
Yeah, and that's not just an International Workers' Day, that's every day. That's our job, to have those conversations and not to shy away from those who challenge us or who we perceive to be on the other side. That it's easy for you and me to nod and agree with each other.
Yeah.
It's much more difficult to have the conversations with those who disagree with us or who are still making their mind up. You know, it's not about trying to convince them with, like, you know, you have to in a dogmatic way. I think in a very civil conversations, and those conversations don't even have to be organised. Like, we do have education meetings, and next week's going to be great as well, because Connolly Bookshop have organised a week-long festival and have a number of different speakers there and events and gigs. And tomorrow as well, there's the Dublin Trades Union March. So there's an awful lot happening. As long as we remember that International Workers' Day isn't just one day. We work every day. And that's why, you know, you don't get there's no such thing as a holiday, like, especially
No,
when you have kids.
definitely not. Absolutely not.
There's no time off, and there's no double time either
No,
for when you
absolutely.
work harder. You know, we're all just come out with the same, you know. So that would be my message. And I hope, like a lot of days, whether it's International Working Women's Days or any day, that we remember this isn't a once-off event. This is, our struggle continues every day.
Well, that's absolutely brilliant, Roisin, and solidarity to you, comrade, and in your continuous, very impressive organising, and solidarity to you and to the Palestinian people and to the workers worldwide from the Peadar O'Donnell Socialist Republican Forum. As always, we've went over time, we've talked too much, as Tyrone people often do, but sure, here, that's nothing we could do about that. Happy International Workers' Day
Solidarity,
to you.
comrade. Slán go fóill.
Brilliant.